Great. So again, the same caveat I want to throw for a lot of people that there may be some people who are expert already who may be into the market. For them, it's a very, very basic course we are having right now. So whatever knowledge, experience we have, or for whatever reason you have become part of this session, you're most welcome to check our methodology, check us. But this course is not really meant for people who are so-called experts in the field. We are focusing more on increasing the knowledge depth of people who are absolutely basic in financial markets. So it's 11. I'll wait for 5 more minutes before I can kickstart the whole learning, because we gave time of 11 to a lot of people. So I'm presuming that there will be some who are lining up. I'll wait for 5 minutes before I kickstart it aggressively. In the meanwhile, you guys make sure that your infrastructure is all set ready, because last time some people complained that there was some bottleneck in terms of they were not hearing us properly, they were unable to communicate with us properly. So just check your infrastructure, everything is fine. We will have this session today for 1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes, not more than that, because last time it stretched to almost 1.5 to 2 hours. So we'll keep this, restrict ourselves to 1 hour, and we can have a Q&A in between the class as well.
Hello.
Okay, so we'll start with the class today. Can you see my desktop? I don't think so. People can see my desktop. Let me share my desktop with you. Let me share my desktop with you. I'm just trying to figure out how do I share my desktop with you. Just a minute, please. Can you see my desktop? Okay, thank you. So, okay. Great. So now you can see my desktop, right? Great, fantastic. So let's start with this. So we are going to talk about macroeconomics today, and we are going to see how macroeconomics and markets are related to each other. Why, as a market participant or someone who is related to market in some form, has to have an understanding of macroeconomics. Okay. Before that, we would definitely like to touch the basics of macroeconomics first, and then we try to get into the applied economics on markets. So what is economics? If I can ask you this question, in a very simple form, obviously there are a lot of technical definitions of economics available online as well, But if I ask you in a very, very simplistic form, economics is basically the analysis of what kind of resources you have and how do you utilize those resources to meet your desire or your consumption need. That is economics, right? You know, think from your home perspective or yourself perspective, that what according to you is economics for yourself. According to me, economics is how much money do I have in my bank or in my wallet. What kind of that means what kind of resources I have, and what kind of ability I have to generate more resources for myself. Ability can be in terms of my earning power, ability can be in terms of my action power. So what kind of ability I have to generate resources for myself, and what is my desire? My desire can be to buy a car, my desire can be to live a very happy life by getting good home. My desire can be that I want to marry a wealthy rich girl, right? Now whether my income or my resources commensurate with my desire, and economics will help you to maintain a balance between these two things. So essentially, taking the discussion forward to the technical definition of economics, which we know through our academics, we know that it's a point where you try to find out an equilibrium between the demand and the supply. So it's a social science that analyzes the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. So there are two fields of economics. One is the macroeconomics, which talks about economy as a whole, or the overall macro production, distribution of the economy as a whole or country as a whole. And then there is microeconomics, which is micro in nature, which talks about you, it talks about your product, it talks about a small product or an industry or a particular sector. So when we talk about economics and in a macro terms, okay, by the way, this presentation has been used by me to explain you the term economics. We also have a Word doc where we have explained whatever I'm going to talk about it today, and we are going to email you the Word doc for your convenience so that in future also you can read this, you can revise whatever we are discussing today. So last time we did not present you that Word doc, but this time for economics we have presented a Word doc for your reference purpose. My team will be emailing you that Word doc next week. So when we talk about macroeconomics, we should understand that there are three markets where predominantly macroeconomics works. One is the labor market, the other is a product market, and the third is capital market. Now these three markets cumulatively makes up an economy, right? All the three markets are interrelated and interdependent. So if you want to judge how is an economy doing, you have to evaluate how is the labor market doing, how is the product market doing, and how is the capital market doing. And the most important thing is how is the relationship between labor market, how is this relationship between labor market, product market is behaving. To start a business, suppose, again, get into the microeconomics where we decide that we want to start a business. So to start a business, we need capital, we need a labor, and we need product. Now the product can be a raw material as well as the final product which will be selling to the market. Without labor market, your product development will not happen. Without capital, you cannot be able to pay to your labor, so your product will not happen. And without really the final product or the raw material which you have, your labor and capital resource will be non-viable. It's of no use. So what does transfer this into now macroeconomics, where in a country, a labor market, the product market, and the capital market, all these three will work in tandem to create a healthy, efficient market hypothesis. And this will ultimately lead to the fair pricing of products in the economy. And when there is fair pricing, that means there is a fair inflation. When there is a fair interest rate, you will see the overall economic growth happening handsomely. But this is easier said than done. This believes that there are other factors which are constant. But one of the major catalysts of change in economic scenario is a demographic profile. we're going to discuss the relevance of demographic profile in economics and markets in future. Now, how does the what is the effect of economy on stock market? Just a minute, I'll just remove this. Yeah. So if you see the typical economic cycle, when there is a boom and then when there is a bust. So when there is a bust, it's a typically recession scenario when everything is going tough. And then there is a recovery that ultimately, okay. Okay, Jimit, before, I would just want to reply to your query that we will not give you this presentation, although if you are subscribed to any of our course, then this presentation is available for you to download. But we'll give you the Word document, which is exactly this presentation and whatever I'm talking. So we are giving more than this presentation to you, okay? So coming back to the cycle, so when there is a slump, there is a recession, and there is a recovery, and which ultimately leads to boom. This economic cycle is such a natural process. Think about it. The whole world, the whole universe works in a cycle, isn't it? Even your breathing works in a cycle. Your agriculture products work in a cycle. The revolution, the way universe is functioning, it works in a cycle. And cycle is such a natural process. Why cycle happens? It depends upon the productivity, it depends upon government action, it depends upon interest rates. So we're going to discuss how market and cycles are so interlinked. And if you are successful in interpreting or predicting the cycles, for you understanding the market is very easy. Let me give you a peculiar advantage of market. A market is a place, stock market is such a strong tool which will always be the first one to predict the cycle. So if you are tracking market carefully and if you are thinking about what will happen to the cycle 1 year or 6 months down the line, you will be able to predict the market. So both of these things are interlinked. By stock market you can predict the cycle. By predicting the cycle, you can predict the stock market. You're getting this? So let us go through the text in the presentation. Economy and stock market. Now, recession results in low demand of labor, product, and capital. We all know 2013, how tough it was. It was an extreme level of recession in India. It is characterized by high employment, leading to lesser income level, and thus resulting a decrease in demand for goods and services. The company decreased their production, employing lesser labor and capital. So there is kind of a vicious cycle everyone gets into, where everyone tries to control the cost, the productivity of the labor goes down, people check out the labor, excess capital. So there will be least production activity happening. If the overall production activity is low, obviously the economic activity will be low. As economy strengthens, firms' profitability rise, yielding a positive return in equity for which more investors want to buy the share. So this basically tries to relate the economic cycle with the stock market. And why this economic cycle happens is a separate discussion which we will be making later. Now, basically, if you see the chart, this chart talks about the macroeconomic structure of an economy, where there is government as a key party, there are households, there are corporations whose role is to use the resources and manufacture products using the workforce to generate return. That return eventually goes back to the government as a taxation. That return goes back to the household as the investment revenue. That return goes back to the market again in the form of savings generation. So there are basically, if you see, there are workforce market, which is a labor market. There's a government as a participant. There's a corporation. There's a household. There's a financial market as a component. There are the foreign markets, which is, this talks about your market. So there are foreign markets as well, which is beyond your market, which is basically the global trade. Why global trades happen? Because each country has some kind of a competitive advantage which they want to capitalize on. Like India is strong in agri, whereas you see Australia is extremely strong in mining, resources, natural resources. South Africa is extremely strong in mining or natural resources. So each country has some kind of a competitive advantage. So because of that, there will be global trades happening. So these are the typical components of a country. And if you can understand the interrelationship of these components, you understand how country functions. And if any one component starts malfunctioning,